couple in here. I want to Pastor J.C. Wade and Mama Ella Wade are in here today in studio to talk about a very serious conversation, in particular around this time of year. But it really happens. Obviously, it's going to happen with all of us at some point in time, and some of you are going through it right now, and that is grieving, ladies and gentlemen. And they teach a class, I believe, over at Ivy Tech.
That is correct.
And in which they kind of help people to kind of utilize the tools that they've had to use in order to go about the grieving process. And as I said earlier in the show, the holidays are obviously about festive times and family and things like that. But as you get a little older, you find out that there's certain people that, are removed from the holidays. They're no longer with us. And for some people, in particular, recently widowed people and people that might be having to deal with the loss of a very close family member, the holidays are not necessarily a fun time. It's a time of grieving. And sometimes you need outside help in order to come through that in a very healthy manner. And so we're very happy to support this conversation today on the show. And so once again, I want to welcome Pastor Wade and his lovely wife, Mama Ella, right here on the show. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As I said, I think this is something that we really should have conversations about, because I had a couple of calls before you came here and people were kind of talking about their own situations, and I kind of shared mine that I had, and everybody's going to have a situation like that if we've lived long enough. It's just a part of life. And so if you don't mind, kind of give us the backstory about how you got here.
Okay. That's the answer that when I'm asked this question,
yeah,
I always refer this to my wife.
Okay.
And
smart man. There's a lot of smart men that come through here. We know when to defer to our wives, don't we?
I'm going to defer this to my wife and let her kind of give you a capsule of how we really started this ministry.
Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. The origin of this ministry started at the death of our son in 2015.
Yeah.
And the stages that we had to go through, the process that we had to deal with, and all of the many things that came up out of his death, because it was a sudden death.
Right.
And we just didn't know how to deal with it. Just tell you the truth. We did not know how to deal with it. And even out of all your crying and your praying and all of the many things that you do, the guilt you feel, you blaming yourself,
right,
you blaming him, and you blaming others, and you just go through a pattern of grief that kind of puts you in a place where you don't need to be.
Yes.
And then sometimes you even blame the Lord.
Yeah.
Let's tell the truth about it.
Let's talk about it. Right.
We blame the Lord. We get upset and get mad. So this is really what happened to me, and it happened to my husband.
Yes.
And so what we decided to do, we prayed together, we studied together, and we've always done that.
Yes.
But this time it was different.
Right. Because
this is our oldest child. And
if I could inject, because one of the things, and I'm not a parent myself, but I just remember, even my own parents just always kind of talking and being protective of me when I was a little boy growing up.
Right.
But you've always heard the statement that, one of the worst things to go through is a parent kind of preceding or child preceding their parents.
Yes, because you never expect to bury your children.
Right.
And you want them to bury you.
Right.
And this was
and you're the parent, and you feel that there's probably so much.
They're supposed to funeralize you.
Yeah,
and they're supposed to outlive you.
Right.
But that doesn't happen.
Right.
When it doesn't happen, it's traumatic.
Right.
And really, it brings about deep sorrow, and it's really like a burden, and you really grieve. Sometimes you really deal with distress.
Yes.
And so as a result of that, in a minute I'm going to have my wife to talk about the goals, objectives, but I want to insert this, and that is the problem as a culture.
Yes.
As a culture. Now I want to be clear. As a culture, we have people who have a flawed criteria for healing.
I want you to elaborate on that. That was deep.
We have a flawed criteria for healing, and that is, we have been taught as a culture, one more time, the way I can speak is from the cultural standpoint, is that what happens in the house stays in the house.
Well,
and as a result, we are not transparent.
Well, listen, we had a conversation, ironically, about this yesterday.
Is that right?
When we were talking about, and we've had conversations on this show as it relates to some of the taboos in our culture as it relates to mental illness.
Yes, mental illness.
And grieving is a form of mental illness. It doesn't have to be permanent, but it reveals some kind of vulnerability, and sometimes that is looked upon as weakness.
We always say that grief and mental health are inextricably tied together.
Absolutely, sir. Yes. So go to your lovely wife. This is interesting. Go ahead.
Yes, and then what happened is that I had to, for me as a mother, I had to get to a place with the Lord for myself.
Right.
We both were grieving. He is grieving. I'm not going to say it was not as strong as
No,
mine,
I want to explore that.
Speaking for myself.
As a mother.
As a mother.
No, I want to explore that because, I believe that there are, even though we are obviously human beings, but I'm somebody that still subscribes because, I know how my relationship with my mother and father, I loved them both, but they had different capacities in which they made our unit. My mother was the more nurturing one. And so as a mother, I want to ask you to kind of explore that because I do believe that and it's your oldest. You've known, I always make jokes about the oldest. You know them the longest. And it was a boy.
Let me just make this insertion in here while she's getting ready to explain that. And that is, I have noticed, I pastored a church for 45 years.
Yeah.
And during that pastoring of those years, I discovered something.
Yeah, what did you discover?
I discovered that there's a relationship between the mother and a son that's different than a father and a son.
Absolutely.
And there's a difference, watch this, between a girl and a father. Then is a mother and a girl. Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing. We talk about
and you can't explain it. There's no way to explain. God has so fixed it that there's a relationship that you really can't explain.
Well, listen, you and I are on point because we talk about this. I know that's a whole nother conversation, but my theory would be is that, my mother was the first woman that I ever loved.
That's
and
right.
I learned how to love. And so she set the standard.
Right.
And vice versa, why a father is needed for a young lady because she's the first man that she encounters and learns how to love and how to be treated. So you are on it, some pastor. You're good at your job. Go ahead.
So this is why my son was so dear to me and so close to me. And when this happened, it was like we had talked to him 3 hours earlier.
Right.
And then when we got the call, and they said it was him.
Yeah.
I said, no, it wasn't.
Right.
I said, I argued with them.
Yeah.
But they proved it to be right. And so we had to go. And we went, and I saw for myself.
Right.
Devastating. I can't even explain it.
Yeah.
It's only another mother
yeah.
who's gone through what I went through would understand the feeling and how it feels to lose your child.
Now, you talked about the emotional stages that you were going through and that you went through, obviously, as a couple. And so, you know, as somebody who has never experienced this, but I'm sure our audience is wondering as well, it seems like one of the stages that would be the obvious one as a parent is, I could have done something. Why didn't I pick up the signs? How could I have prevented this? How long did you stay in that place?
Well, for several months.
Yes.
In fact, it went into a year.
Yeah.
But what happened is this. I had to get to a place with the Lord for myself.
Right.
I thought I knew how to pray, and I do know how to pray.
Right.
But this made me even stronger, and I learned to lean on Him. And I would go every morning at 4 o'clock. I've told this story, and every time I tell it, it's the same because it's the truth. And I started getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Didn't know why I was waking up at 4 o'clock and couldn't go back to sleep.
Right.
So after I did it several days and several weeks and then into months, I said, God is telling me something.
Mm-hmm.
So when I get up at 4 o'clock, I want to just use this prayer time
right.
for myself, get off into a secret area and pray for yourself. So I started asking God I asked Him why.
Yes.
And I questioned Him.
Yeah.
And I did, but then I had to realize that He's a sovereign God.
Right. He
has a right to come get His child when He decides.
Yes.
Nobody operates that but Him. Mm-hmm. But I got to the place where I prayed more and more. And then one morning I got back up and I said, "No, Lord, I want to just stay here until You deliver me." I said, "I'm sorry for even saying anything about what You did.
Right.
I need You to get me straight."
Yes.
And I want to get straight with You because I feel like I have accused the Lord of taking my son.
Yes.
Well, he's the kind of God he is. He can come get all of us.
Right.
When he gets ready.
Yes, ma'am.
So I had to apologize for that. And I told the Lord I was sorry for thinking that. And then I didn't want it to be my son. I prayed that prayer all the way to the Arizona that it wasn't him.
Right.
Why not my son?
Exactly.
It would have been some mother's son, but it happened to be my son. So I got to the place where I asked God to forgive me.
Now, that's a very serious statement that you made, and it's an unselfish one because that shows your journey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You get selfish in this.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I prayed. I kept praying, God, forgive me, and then, Lord, deliver me from the heaviness of my son, because it was like somebody stuck me and they left it there.
Now,
the pain was so heavy.
Now, let me ask you this, and I want to bring your husband into this because this is a very interesting journey, and it's also a unique one because obviously you all are a spiritual couple and you're a spiritual woman, and it just so happens your husband, this is his wheelhouse. This is what he does. He has been ministering and he counsels others.
Yes.
How was it to lean on him? Because as you were looking for answers at that point in time, this is your partner in life, and he's a person that others would go to first in that very same situation. So how was it to be able to look upon him, he's going through the same thing you are, but also kind of utilize his tools and his talents? Were you able to do that, or was it like, we're in this together, I got to kind of get with myself first before I go to him? Or how did that work?
No.
Because you're in a unique place.
Yes. I leaned on him.
Nice.
I leaned on him. I cried on him. We prayed together. We read the Bible together.
Yeah.
We did things together that we had not been doing. And he wouldn't leave me, and I wanted to be just covered and sheltered up under him.
Yeah.
Then that's when you realize that he's grieving too.
Yes.
My husband is grieving. Just why would I be so selfish and just pour all of my grief on him?
Right.
So this is when I know the Lord for myself.
Yeah.
And so I started praying in my own secret closet.
Yeah.
For me to be delivered.
Yes.
And as well as prayed for him without him. Yeah. I prayed to the Lord for him and for myself.
Now I want to go to him, but I want to ask you this, and this obviously, I want to ask first and foremost how many years you all have been married, because you're a wonderful couple. You really are. But
I'll let her answer.
I'll let her answer, but I just want to kind of preface it with this: is that I kind of want to find out about this because, for married couples out there, and you all have raised a family and things like that, and to kind of go through this journey and the way you so beautifully described it, did you find yourself now kind of reintroducing and feeling a little closer? Because sometimes I think married couples and parents, you're raising a family together, you got all those years, things become routine, and while you're still living your life together, you don't necessarily, you forget about those emotional connections that just you and your wife or you and your husband have. And it appeared that you got to that place where you were reaching out to him and you really reconnected. Did you feel like that was happening?
Well, we've always been close.
Yes.
We've always shared in everything that we try to do with our family, even in the rearing of our children.
Yeah.
Let me make an insertion. Let me just make an insertion. I know you're coming to me, but let me just make an insertion with this.
Go ahead.
When our children were small, something happened. Our son was in high school. Our oldest daughter was in junior high.
Yes.
And our baby daughter, who's now the first lady of our church, was in grade school.
Yes.
Right.
In East Chicago, and of course, in the state of Indiana, it's a basketball state.
Absolutely.
Washington High School was playing in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Our son took our girls to the basketball game.
Yeah.
My wife and I sat on the couch for 2 hours without saying a word to each other. We were not angry.
Yeah.
We were not upset.
Yeah.
We were just sitting there watching TV for 2 hours without any conversation at all.
Yeah.
And the Holy Spirit literally, watch this.
Yes.
It is. Touched me on the shoulder and said to me, you're going to have to make a change because you are now discovering that you have wrapped your lives around your children.
Yeah.
Now that they're here, there's something that you're missing.
Yeah.
And at that moment, my wife and I did something that we've never done before. We made a switch, made a change, and we start focusing on each other. So when it happened to our son,
Yeah.
the focus was not hard.
We're going to have another show about this because this is marriage counseling. That is absolutely amazing what you just got through saying.
And what happens is
Yeah.
a lot of times parents say we're going to have an empty nest.
Yeah.
And you have problems because you have not really
You
understood.
didn't grow together.
You did not grow together.
Yes.
You grew around your children. And
Yep.
they're gone. And remember now, they're going to leave you.
They're going to.
They're going to leave. And that's why you train them to leave you. And then when they leave, you know what to do.
Yeah.
And you really, actually, you don't have them about 18
That's
years.
it.
That's all.
That's it.
When they go to college,
They're going.
it's fine.
It's fine.
They're not coming back.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
And
And then now you train them.
Yeah,
you train them to leave.
Exactly.
But the problem is that the most interesting thing about it, when you train them to leave, you really don't want them to leave.
No, you
Yeah,
don't.
of course you don't. I mean, they're your babies. You know. But let's get back to this because this is absolutely amazing. And like I said, I really do want you all to come back because I'm going down areas that I didn't even expect.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I want to get to you, sir, and talk about your experience because, you know, once again, as a person has wrapped himself up in the faith, and you're going to be that guy that if I was going through this and I was a member of your church, I'm calling you. I'm going to ask for some time and maybe even talk to the First Lady because I'd like to get a little nurturing out of the deal.
Right.
But I'm going to come to you and ask how I'm going through it. Now you find yourself right here, dead center, going through it yourself. How did you cope with this?
Prayer
Yeah.
and the word
Yeah.
and leaning on each other. Then I had to realize in my years of pastoring, I counsel a lot of people, but I discovered that this one was different.
Yeah.
And the questions that we had to answer, here's some of the questions. And those who are listening, if they have a pencil and a piece of paper, I'd like for them to write these questions down because they're very important.
Yes.
When you're going through grief, there's some questions that you have to answer.
Mm-hmm.
Number one is, what kind of loss am I grieving?
Mm-hmm.
What's the loss? What am I?
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two is, what are some of my reactions
Yeah.
that I have to deal with
Yeah.
in my grief? Number two, then how do I accept the reality of this loss?
Right.
Some questions you have to. Then finally, this is why we have this class, and it became important to us because we had to understand how to process this grief.
Yeah.
And grieving and healing is a process. I tell pastors that pastors have to be careful, especially during this pandemic.
Yeah.
And I'm reaching out to pastors
Mm-hmm.
to come to class. I know pastors I know you're muscular, you're macho and all, but pastors need this class. We need this class for healing for us.
Right.
Yeah.
We need this class for healing
Yes.
because this is something we've never experienced before. And how do you do it? Is because you have to lean on each other.
Yeah.
You have to understand the process. And it's more than, listen, Brother Smith.
Yeah.
Let me say that. I'm sitting up, I had a pastoral moment there.
No, go ahead.
It's more than praying and laying on hands.
Uh-oh. I want to say preach. Is that appropriate?
It's more than
Go ahead.
it's more than you coming to the pastor and coming to the altar. He lay hands on you, anoint you with oil. It's healing is more than that. Now it can happen right there. God is a God who is a right now God, but then God is a God who uses people.
Yeah.
That's what God does.
Yes.
He can heal you right now, which for the most times we're not ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to understand the process of recovery.
Yeah.
And it takes time. And then as a culture, one more time as culture, we think that therapy, psychiatry is taboo.
Right.
And you're crazy. You're not. By the mere fact you're admitting that you have a process, you're healing, you're hurting, let you know that you need some help. You see, if you go to the doctor and you say I have a headache, nobody complains and say you're crazy.
Right.
But you have a heartache and you go to the psychiatrist or a doctor or go to a class like that. What's wrong with you all?
Right.
Have you been praying? And then another thing, I tell people, never let anyone determine the length of your process of your recovery.
Right,
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
People say, hey, you're a preacher, by now you ought to be over that.
Exactly.
That's our culture.
Yeah.
And it's just because we have been taught certain things and we're walking around hurt. And I discovered that I had to be honest with myself, honest with God, honest with my wife. And the thing that really, that I had to deal with two things.
Yes.
I had to deal with the pain of the loss of our son,
Right.
but I had to deal with the pain of my wife's
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
That was one of the most painful parts of the recovery process.
And see, here's what I like about what you said, because I like I said, all of us have, but I've gone through some serious grief. And when you talked about the honesty of what we have to ask ourselves. And one of the things that I had to do was I had to be honest with myself is that the reason I felt I was grieving is because I was very selfish. I did not want these people to be gone, but in fact, they were going in a better place and better situation because my mother was in extreme pain and she was in a bad way. And I was happy for the relief that she was getting by being free of all that. And so I had to look myself in the eye and say, well, I'm in fact grieving. Is it because I want her around just for my satisfaction? Yeah, there you go. And so when you kind of go through that, it kind of went through my mind. I'm like, these are the kind of things you have to do. And they're hard at times because you're not thinking clearly. You're thinking with your emotions. You don't want to sit here and think about that.
Now, let me just make this other insert. I don't want to cut you off.
No, you're doing great. You're getting me going.
I thought about also that I'm trying to get the message over to pastors and churches.
Yeah.
That what I have found in most of our churches, and this is not a criticism, this is just a fact. Most of our churches have funeral committees.
Oh.
We do not have grief ministries.
Right.
And we're not trained to handle grief. What we do is we get the funeral, we get the people ready for the funeral.
I know exactly.
All the chicken, all the programs.
All right. Be careful.
I'm sorry.
I'm just asking for your safety. You're going to be leaving here, be a bunch of Lincoln Continentals and Cadillacs following you around.
I don't want that to be, because I have to preach at these churches, and I'm so blessed that a lot of pastors just invite me.
No.
But on a serious note, I always say that when the funeral is over, then that's when the grieving starts. Because you really can't grieve coming up to be happy. You have to deal with all the
got to deal with all the arrangements and all that kind of stuff.
So when it's over, that's when the grieving starts.
The day it's over,
and all the family's gone.
Exactly.
All the people have stopped sending cards and
the food is eaten.
All the food is over.
Oh my God, yes. That's
family
what it's
members gone.
Yeah.
It's just
and then you have to start editing your feelings.
Yeah. Now, guys, we kind of go into that a little bit because you're bringing up some good points. I want people to go to this class. Tell me about editing my feelings.
Because you have anger.
Yeah.
You have loneliness.
You do get angry.
That you regret.
Yeah.
Denial.
Guilt. What's that?
Denial.
Let my wife talk about that just one moment.
Yeah. Listen, toss it over to your wife. She's ready.
When you're talking about being in denial.
Yes.
When you really know something is really true, but you won't accept it.
Right.
That's denial.
That's denial. And so how common is that? How did that go? I mean, you because you do seem like you live in a fog when these things happen. It's like, I can't believe this. This has to be a dream.
You really just sometimes pinch yourself.
Yeah.
Is this really real?
Right.
And you keep telling yourself, no, this is not real.
Right.
See, you keep saying you're okay.
Right.
We don't even like for folks to tell us. If somebody tell us how you feel, we ask how you feel, and they say okay.
Yeah.
Automatically, we know that they are not okay.
No, you're hitting. I want to go to the
That's just a word that you use.
Yeah.
Maybe
kind of push
you use
people
this.
Back.
Maybe they'll stop asking me so many
Exactly.
questions. But you really don't. You really
You're
not
okay.
all right. You're not okay.
No.
You have to get to a place where you are okay. And I saw a clipping that said grief is like living two lives.
Right.
The first one, you pretend
that
you're okay. And the second one is that your heart is silently screaming pain.
I like that. I know. I like this. I like that a lot. I want to ask you this, Pastor, because, listen, you did say something, and we do have people who are pastoral, who are in your profession, who are listening to this show right now. And I do want to ask you this because because I love to see more pastors go to this class because I think you bring up a good point. So do you think that people in the clergy sometimes have not thought this through? And what I mean by that is after you go through the eulogy and you're dealing with the lead-in and the immediacy of dealing with that family and kind of collectively going through that and the loss, is it a tendency of the pastor or the church to kind of say, all right, now you fall on your God or you fall on your prayer and then come holler at me next, whenever you need me or you come out to me instead of kind of actively engaging in that second part of grieving that you identified?
We have to reach out.
Yeah.
And the problem is that the pastors are so involved with other parts of the ministry, it's difficult for them to concentrate on just the grieving family. That's why the grief ministry is so important. We have to have a staff of people who understand grief. That's why we're helping to train people to understand how to deal with this business of recovery.
Right.
And I understand this, that one other thing that we discovered in our research, The second cause of death among pastors is suicide.
I never heard that.
You never heard that?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, my wife and I, we do our study. We didn't just hop off a truck one day.
Oh, no,
we
you
took our time and did some research, and that's why we're trying to tell pastors that you need to come to this class.
Yeah.
Because what happens is people pull so much on the pastor. But here's the question I'm asking. And one of these days, I'm going to put together a prayer group.
Thank you.
And the prayer group is only for pastors.
I know where you're going with
only
this.
for pastors.
Yeah.
And this is what we're working toward, a part of this ministry, just for pastors. Because how many times do we hear people pray for the pastor?
No.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we pray for the pastor every Sunday. Yeah. Our Father in heaven, we pray for our pastor. Bless our pastor. Keep in your care. But do we actually pray, our Father and our God?
Mm-hmm.
Our pastor is struggling with grief himself.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's reached out to us many times. We need our pastor strengthened by his ministry. We need him strengthened with his family. And then to give a list of things, just bless him. Bless him for what?
I like this.
What needs does he have?
Let me ask you this, because you bring up an interesting question, and we don't have a lot of time to kind of go into it, but I'd like you to kind of speak to it. We started off talking about the culture, and we were talking about, obviously, the African-American culture, but let me ask you about the religious pastors.
Right.
Is there a little bit of machismo in it, where as the head guy, the pastor, sometimes it's very difficult for you to go out here and seek spiritual counsel and get the help that you need?
Because it's a part of our culture. The pastor is supposed to be invincible.
Yeah.
And he is not.
Yeah.
He's a human. I teach to tell our church all the time.
Yes.
If you pinch me, I'll hurt.
Yeah.
If you cut me, I'll bleed.
Yeah.
I'm a spiritual person whom God has ordained to preach and to share his word and ministry. Now, here's the reason why God chose me.
Yeah.
You ready?
I'm ready.
God did not choose me because I was so great and grand.
Mm-hmm.
God chose me because he knew I'd say yes.
I'm going to do that.
Oh my goodness! That's
it.
That's a mic drop right there. That is a mic drop. Listen, we could go on. We're kind of up against it. Let's talk about the class quickly.
Okay.
And of course, tell me when the class is given, and how often do you teach it, and how can people kind of sign up and be a part of this? Because this is amazing.
Well, I'm going to let my wife speak.
Okay, the class tonight.
Yeah.
Tonight, November the 17th, will be at the Gary campus.
Okay.
And then I want to give the address for those who are listening.
Yeah.
3491 Broadway.
Yes.
And so this is our fourth class.
Yes. Is it something that you do consistently, or does it kind of pop up?
No.
No, we have a schedule.
Okay. Yeah, let me see.
I want to give you the schedule.
Give me the schedule. Let me have this schedule.
Yeah, we have
I
a
see
schedule.
that it mostly on Thursdays.
Every
It's
Thursday.
Every Thursday.
No,
Okay. All
It's
right.
every other Thursday.
Every other Thursday.
Because we have the dates there. Like tonight is the 17th.
Yes.
And then December the 1st.
Yeah.
Both of the campuses will come together.
Wow.
The classes that we have in Gary and the classes that we have in East Chicago, we will combine them December the 1st.
I see that.
Okay. Now, on January, and I'll stick with East Chicago first, then I'll go to
Okay,
Gary.
that's fine.
January the 5th and February the 2nd.
Yes.
March the 2nd, 2023. These are the dates for the East Chicago campus.
Right. So basically once a month at every campus.
That's it.
That's it.
There you go. I got
And of
it.
course, the Gary campus, we said December, we'll all be together, December the 1st. Then January the 19th, February the 16th.
Yes.
And then March the 16th.
Yeah.
And those are the classes that will be at the Gary campus. There's a 6 classes, but actually it's 12 classes.
Right.
You can go to all
You can
12
go to-
for the same price that you pay for 6.
Exactly, and I want to let the audience know that this is, for what you're getting, here's a couple of things. You need to get a grief workbook, because this is, in fact, an interactive class. I mean, as you've heard these wonderful people talk, I mean, they're going to put you through some exercises. You can get an advance payment of $150 that gives you a workbook, and you get all the classes for 6 weeks, or you can make payments weekly as well. And as I said before, this is absolutely amazing. I knew you all were coming. I knew you all had a story, but I'm feeling very inspired.
Well, let me
Please go ahead.
give just a shout out of thanks for yourself, Jeffrey Smith,
Yeah.
and the one and only Chelsea with each other.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, we just love her dearly.
Yeah.
And listen, she is our PR person. Isn't that marvelous?
You got a good one. You
We
got,
have,
you have one of the
everyone
best.
that I've ever talked to talks about how wonderful she
That's
is.
my partner in crime.
Things about
That's my
her.
partner in crime. Now, I want you to also give a plug for your church because that's what we do here as well. I'm not going to let you get out of here and
I
not
can't
let people
get out
know
of
how
here.
to find
No.
you.
I would never
That's
let
not
people.
going to happen.
I would know how to live with myself. The Zion Missionary Baptist Church, 3939 Drummond Street, East Chicago, Indiana. And we have our pastor, Reverend Dr. Charles L. Thompson Jr. and Sister LaShanta Thompson. Oh, and I'm just great. We served there for 45 years. I retired
Yes.
13 years ago, and we're still there. And Pastor Thompson and the Zion Church and our daughter, they're so wonderful to us.
Yeah.
Oh, listen.
Yes,
You see how we look?
I see
That's
how you
how
look.
we're treated. And you will be blessed. Zion Baptist Church, one more time. 3939 Drummond Street, in the
Drummond Street,
heart
Chicago,
of East
Indiana.
Chicago.
Ladies and gentlemen,
3939
ladies and
Drummond Street.
gentlemen,
Come on now,
what
Zion
you-
Baptist Church.
Some of you are watching online, but what you're hearing is exactly what it looks like. This is a wonderful couple. I'm so pleasant to meet you. Go check them out, and definitely go check out this class. We're going to be promoting this.
Okay,
we
I
are going
appreciate
to be
it.
promoting
We
it. It's going to
appreciate you so
happen.
much.
Thank you.
But I want to thank both of you.
Listen, you're so wonderful.
You are.
And we just appreciate you
Well,
so
I
much.
appreciate
We do.
you. I really
We
do.
do.
This was fun, and it was very
And we want to
educational.
invite ourselves back.
All right. Well, look at you. I like this guy. I like it.
He's something else.
He's
isn't he?
something else.
Listen, you treated us so well. We have to come back.
You got to come back. You got a spot there. That's your seat.
Okay.
All right, everybody.
Thank
And this is a wonderful show.
Thank
We want everybody to listen. Tune into this
All
every
right.
day.
There you go.
Tune into you. Tune
Oh,
in, Brother
my
Jeffrey Smith,
goodness.
every day.
There you go.
You be blessed. We heard you just before we listen. This is special.
Yeah, well, I
And
appreciate
you're
it.
special, man.
Man, I appreciate it.
All
See,
right.
now you get me on goosebumps. I'm trying to remain composed. All right, with that being said, we're going to get ready to take a break.